What up, childrens? Old man shouting at clouds again. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about using language intentionally. And today's example is me, your old man. So there's a phrase I've been using a lot for a while now that I want to stop saying. And that phrase is, I can't afford blank. Whatever it is. Can't afford it. I say this a lot, and I say it in situations where it's actually not appropriate to say it because it's not honest. The honest truth is I could afford it in a lot of cases. Now, yes, if you guys are asking me why I don't buy a Jeff Bezos style mega yacht, the honest answer is I can't afford it. I genuinely can't afford that. Dad, why don't you buy a house in Hawaii? I can't afford it. There are things in this life I can't afford. But the reality is most of the time I'm telling you guys we can't afford something, we actually could afford it. It's just not a priority. So I'll give you some real world examples. So one thing I get a lot of crap for from you guys, from other people, is my car. I drive a 2011 Toyota Camry that's filled with door dings. It's beginning to rust. It's got 169,000 miles or something on it. So people, look at me and they look at the job I have and they look at the house we live in and the neighborhood we live in, and they're like, why don't you get a new car? And I historically have answered, because I can't afford it. Or sometimes I'll say, no, what's more accurate, and I've said this before too, is because this one's paid off. Like, I don't want a car payment. I like being able to not pay that amount of money every single month just for the privilege of driving around. That's a more honest answer. But the most honest answer is I just don't care enough about the car I drive to be willing to invest what it would cost to have a newer one. That's the honest answer. I could afford a car payment. I could afford a car payment on a nicer car than the one I drive right now. I could make those payments. It's just not worth the trade-off to me. So let's say I bought the vehicle I want. I would love a Rivian R1T or an R1S, a Silverado EV, a Ford F-150 Lightning. I'd love those cars. But in order to get them, I'd have to sign up for like a $700, $800, $1,000 a month car payment. And I don't want them that much. There are a lot of other ways I'd rather spend $1,000 every month. So the honest answer is I could afford it. I just choose to spend my money differently. Now, there are people, my good buddy Joel is a good example of this. He cares a lot about cars. He loves cars. It probably puts a smile on his face to get into a nice car and drive. I just don't care that much. Like, to me, a car is a tool I use to get from point A to point B. If I didn't need to have one, I might actually not have one. If I could get everywhere I wanted to go when I wanted to go there without owning a car, I might do that. There are people who wouldn't, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with the way they're spending their money as long as it's honest and true to who they are and it's intentional. They plan for it. They're like, nope, I know that every 3 years I want to get a new car. Something I've done in the past that I don't like doing, and I've been trying to not do it anymore, is to project my values onto other people and say like, oh, that's stupid. Like I said this to my sister once, or I don't know that I said it, but I was thinking it. She was leasing a vehicle, and I was like, that is the dumbest way to get a car. It's the most expensive way. Now, there are some exceptions right now. I think if you lease an electric vehicle, it's actually a better financial decision than leasing historically has been. Usually leasing a vehicle is the most expensive way to drive that vehicle. We could go down that rabbit hole, but Google it. Other people will explain it better than I will. But suffice it to say, it was not the best financial way to drive a vehicle. But if you knew you were going to be getting rid of, you want to have a new car every 2 to 3 years, then maybe it's not the world's worst decision, but it means you're always going to have a car payment. And to me, hard pass. I don't like most of my money being gone before I ever get to decide how I want to spend it that month. So the more monthly payments I have, the more I sweat. I hate having monthly payments. I would rather get my check and then I get to decide how I want to allocate it, not it's already gone. But some people can live with that and they're okay with it. And to them, it's a trade-off they're willing to make. For me, it just isn't. It's just not. I like the freedom of being able to decide every month how I want to spend my income. If I feel like, I get a wild hair and I want to look up plane tickets to Florida or, Costa Rica, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to look that up. I want to be able to say, hey, I have money in my account. I can do this. The more things you sign up for that require a monthly payment, the less freedom you have to make those kind of spontaneous decisions. I don't like that. I don't like things that restrict my freedom. So to me, a car payment is a restriction of my freedom. I can like the car all I want. Yes, you guys know I would love to have a Rivian, but I'm not willing to trade my freedom for it. So I drive the Camry and will continue to drive the Camry because it's paid for and it doesn't require me to make that sacrifice. At some point, I am going to have to let that vehicle go. But I want to be intentional about that. I'd rather save the money so that I can just buy the vehicle and not have to make payments on it. And I would rather that is something that I budgeted for and I'm prepared for than I just walk into a dealership one day and I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy this vehicle and now I got to figure it out. So I do want to use the correct language more often because I think that can also help to teach you guys. It doesn't need to be a scarcity mindset of I don't have enough money. Well, does anyone have enough money? But also, you can have enough money if you're intentional enough about where you spend it, right? So my big thing right now is don't let a marketing person tell you what you want. You should know what you want, and then you should deploy your money and your resources for the things you want. And the things that you don't care about, be as cheap as you want to be on those things. The things that truly matter to you, that's where you should splurge. But the things that don't matter to you, you should let those go to the highest possible degree. Because the bummer of it is most of us are never going to be Jeff Bezos. We're never going to have so much money that we can buy literally anything we want. That's not going to be the reality for 99.9% of humanity. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you got robbed or worked. We could go down a whole separate rabbit hole of how much does Jeff Bezos actually appreciate anything he buys or does? Because he can have anything. So does he get the same enjoyment from buying something as I would, knowing that my money is finite, right? Knowing that I could spend all the money that I have and end up broke. So money means something to me because it's not as scarce as it is for a lot of people, but it's still a finite resource for me. It's not something that I just have an infinite amount of. I do have to budget. I do have to spend my money intentionally because I could run out. Much harder for Jeff Bezos to run out. So does he really appreciate those things? I don't know. Maybe he does. I would hope he does. But it's possible that he doesn't, because usually when you have something like that in such gigantic quantities, even if it's something that at one point in your life you might have valued, you generally end up not valuing it, okay? So there are things I used to value a long time ago that I don't now because I have more money than I did then. So it's easy for me to get that thing. You know what I mean? Like a perfect example of this, well, it's not totally perfect, but it is an example of this would be Air Jordans, right? When I was a kid, man, I wanted those so bad. I wanted them more than almost anything else and never got them. And the first pair I bought, man, I was like, I was walking on air. I was just so happy. And now I get them and I still love them. I still love to wear them, but it's not quite the same because now I can do that. And I just know that. And like, I could buy a pair of Jordans tomorrow if I want. And I don't because I'm like, okay, well, I have them now and I've checked that box. And I still like them. They still make me happy, but I don't need to fixate on them quite the way I did when I couldn't afford them. So you could say that the appreciation level has gone down a little bit. I think the same is true of most material possessions, and that's another reason why I think it's so important to be intentional about these things. Like really do some soul searching when you spend money. Try to be not impulsive when you spend money. And make sure that whatever you're buying it for the right reasons. You're buying it because it does matter to you, not because some high-priced marketing professional like me has convinced you that that's what you want. There are people that are really, really good at convincing you to want things. They know exactly which buttons to push, and they push them. And I think those are purchases you end up regretting. But if you keep central who you are, what things matter to you, and you keep your eye on that prize, it's easier to say no to the other things. But I am going to challenge you the way I'm challenging myself. Don't fall into the easy out of saying, I'm not buying that thing because I can't afford it. It's much more empowering, really, to say, I just choose not to, right? I could buy that thing. I just choose not to. It doesn't matter that much to me. Now, if it matters to you, you go ahead. I'm happy for you. I want you to buy the thing if the thing matters to you. But it doesn't matter to me, so that's just not the way I'm going to use my money. There are other things that are more important to me. For me, retirement, like that's super important to me. I will sacrifice. I'll drive a crappy vehicle. I'll go on a few less vacations. I'll live in a less nice house. I'll finish the basement myself rather than paying someone else to do it. I'll sacrifice so that I can retire earlier, okay? I mean, I'm grateful to my job for the lifestyle I've been able to enjoy, but that doesn't mean that's the way I would choose to spend my time if I could do whatever I wanted to do, right? Part of the reason I have the job I have is I want to offer you guys a good lifestyle. I want you guys to not come out of, if you decide college is the right path for you, I don't want you to come out of college 6 figures in debt and starting behind the 8 ball. I want you to be able to make decisions from a position of power. Well, I didn't invent capitalism in the world we live in. You need money to be able to do those things, right? Everything here costs something. So, if you don't have any resources, you're at a big disadvantage. If you do have resources, you're at an advantage. It's always better to negotiate from a position of power than a position of weakness. So I do what's required, but if I didn't have to do it, I would not do it. Like literally, if I could afford to retire tomorrow, I would. So I'm trying to turbocharge that and retire as fast as I possibly can, within reason. I'm not on the FIRE movement, but I am on the let's get to financial freedom as soon as we can while still somewhat enjoying the present. But that's where things like a car it's not a high enough priority for me. It's much more important to me that I can retire sooner. My goal is like 59. A lot of people are like, well, I'll work until I'm 70. I'm like, good on you. Not me. Not if I can avoid it. So yeah, that's the thing though is, don't don't just take the cop out of saying I can't afford it. I could afford it. I just choose to allocate my resources differently. And if people want to give me crap about that, so be it. I'm not going to give them crap about the way they choose to live their life. If driving a nice new car is important to them, good for them. Then you buy that car and I'm happy for you. It's just not how I choose to do things. So don't bust my balls about it. You know, that's, I mean, or you can, and I'm just not going to care. But these are my priorities. It's my life. It's my money. I'm going to spend it how I choose to. So, but at any rate, it's a little rambly, but I hope there's some nuggets of wisdom here. I hope I hope it at least just gets you thinking about things. Like when you become an adult, I know it's hard to imagine right now because you don't have bills to pay, but when you become an adult, that transition will be much easier if you learn how to think about financial questions today and you start kind of practicing intentionality, right? Like where does it really matter for me to invest my money? That's why we've given you guys bank accounts right now and debit cards so that you can get used to managing a finite resource like money and say, okay, if I buy this, then I can't buy that. Which one matters more to me? I hope that we give you some good training on that, because when you become an adult then and you're out on your own, that transition is going to be much smoother than it would be if all of this stuff was just brand new to you. So I hope this gives you some insight into the way that we think about things. If you have questions about these things, you'd like to talk about it more, you know where to find me. I'm happy to help with that. Yeah. So, and maybe it is something that we should talk about more, because it is a big change from being a kid to being an adult. And if we can make that transition a little smoother, I think that's something we'd be willing to do. So anyway, I love you lots. I hope this one helped. Talk to you next time.